Record-breaking rain has turned South Korea's southern coast into a rapidly developing flood and landslide emergency. The most severe damage is centered on Geoje, a coastal city in South Gyeongsang Province near Busan, where more than 800 millimeters of rain fell over several days. Rivers spilled into neighborhoods, roads disappeared beneath muddy water, hillsides failed, and residents became trapped inside homes and vehicles. At least one person has died, 4 others were reported injured across the affected region, and hundreds of people have been moved to safer locations. This is not a case of ordinary seasonal flooding. The speed and concentration of the rainfall overwhelmed local drainage systems before communities had time to recover between bursts of rain. Even where the water has started to fall, officials say the danger has not completely passed. The rainfall figures explain why the flooding developed so quickly. The Korea Meteorological Administration measured 124.5 millimeters, almost 5 inches, during a single 60-minute period at Geoje. That exceeded the city's previous hourly record of 96.5 millimeters and became the highest one-hour total there since observations began in 1972. By noon Monday, Geoje had received 819 millimeters since Saturday morning. Nearby, Tongyeong recorded 686.9 millimeters, including a record 97.4 millimeters in 1 hour. Daily rainfall records were also broken in both cities. KMA estimated that Geoje's most intense hourly burst corresponded statistically to roughly a 200-year rainfall event at that observation point. That description does not mean such rain can occur only once every 2 centuries. It means the measured intensity had an exceptionally low probability in any individual year based on historical data. The deadliest incident occurred before dawn in Okpo-dong, Geoje. Shortly after 4:30 in the morning, a rain-saturated hillside collapsed and sent mud, rocks, and broken vegetation into the first floor of an apartment building. Rescue teams searched the damaged structure and pulled residents from the debris. One person was taken to a hospital but later died. Other residents suffered injuries, while additional rain-related injuries were reported elsewhere in the southern region. In neighboring Tongyeong, rescuers also reached a resident who had been partially buried when another landslide struck a home. These incidents show why landslides can become the most lethal part of a rain disaster. Floodwater is visible and often gives some warning as it rises. A weakened slope, however, can fail suddenly, particularly at night when residents are indoors and visibility is poor. Across Geoje, overflowing streams and drainage channels sent muddy water through low-lying neighborhoods. The Seojangshan and Suwoshan streams were among the waterways reported to have overflowed. Residents called for help from flooded homes and stranded vehicles, while emergency crews warned that submerged roads and debris were making some locations difficult to reach even for fire engines. By late morning, fire authorities had received 1,947 reports connected to the heavy rain in Geoje and Tongyeong. Crews carried out repeated rescue operations and reported bringing 136 people to safety. In some coastal districts, high tide made drainage more difficult by slowing the movement of floodwater toward the sea. This combination of extreme rainfall, overflowing channels, and restricted road access created a cascading emergency. The same water-damaging neighborhoods was also delaying the people trying to reach them. The Interior and Safety Ministry said roughly 390 people were evacuated as conditions deteriorated, while power outages affected about 3,580 homes. Around 150 residents from the area near the damaged apartment complex were sheltered at a local middle school. For many families, evacuation meant leaving with little notice while rain was still falling and roads were becoming harder to navigate. Public transportation was suspended in parts of Geoje. Flooded streets, landslides, and road closures disrupted travel across the southern coast, including sections near Gyeongsang. Major shipbuilders Hanwha Ocean and Samsung Heavy Industries advised employees in Geoje to remain at home instead of attempting dangerous commutes. These decisions reduced additional exposure, but they also demonstrate the broader economic impact. When roads, electricity, and public transportation fail together, disruption spreads far beyond the blocks that are visibly underwater. Schools and public facilities also suffered extensive damage. An initial assessment found direct flooding at 12 schools and kindergartens in Geoje and Tongyeong. As inspections expanded, the Regional Education Office identified 41 affected facilities, 33 in Geoje and 8 in Tongyeong. Reported problems included flooded classrooms, cafeterias, libraries, playgrounds, parking areas, leaking roofs, blocked drainage channels, and damage to retaining walls. The rising count does not necessarily mean that 29 additional buildings were suddenly flooded. It reflects how disaster assessments work. The most obvious emergencies are recorded first, while leaks, structural concerns, and hidden water damage are discovered later. Education officials said urgent repairs would be prioritized before students returned from summer break. Where kitchens or classrooms could not be restored in time, alternative meals, temporary care arrangements, or delayed reopening could be considered. Meteorologists linked the downpour to a low-pressure system associated with the remnants of Typhoon Dolphin. As that system approached the Korean peninsula, it helped strengthen a narrow flow of warm, moisture-rich air from the south. The air had traveled over coastal waters with temperatures near 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, allowing it to carry a large amount of water vapor. When that moist air reached the mountainous southern coastline and nearby islands, the terrain forced it upward. Rising air cools and condenses, helping thunderstorms repeatedly produce intense rain over the same area. This is why the total volume was only part of the problem. The greater danger came from how quickly the rain arrived and how narrowly it was concentrated. No urban drainage system can remove unlimited water, and once soil becomes saturated, additional rain is converted rapidly into surface runoff, while slopes lose stability. It is important to describe the scale accurately. The most serious destruction is concentrated in Geoje, Tongyeong, and other parts of the southern coast. The images do not mean that all of South Korea is underwater. At the same time, calling this merely a local rainstorm would understate what happened. Geoje and Tongyeong both broke long-standing hourly rainfall records, and the resulting failures affected housing, schools, transportation, electricity, and major workplaces at the same time. The storm also arrived after weeks of drought in South Gyeongsang Province. While the rainfall may improve reservoirs and relieve some agricultural water shortages, that benefit does not cancel the immediate human and infrastructure losses. Nor should one event by itself be used to make a definitive climate attribution. What can be stated confidently is that extreme short-duration rainfall creates a growing planning challenge wherever dense development, steep terrain, and limited drainage space meet. By late Monday evening, the heaviest rain had weakened, but the Korea Meteorological Administration said additional rain could continue across the southern region into Tuesday morning. With the ground already saturated, officials warned that landslides, falling rocks, soil movement, and structural failures could still occur after the most intense downpour had ended. Emergency teams are continuing drainage work, road inspections, utility restoration, and checks for hidden damage across Geoje, Tongyeong, and nearby districts. Casualty, evacuation, and damage totals may change as assessments are completed. Residents should continue following local alerts, avoid flooded roads and underpasses, stay away from rivers, and respect closures around unstable slopes. A road that appears shallow can conceal a washed-out surface or a current strong enough to move a vehicle. Thank you for watching Extreme Weather US. If you value calm, carefully verified coverage of major weather disasters, consider subscribing so you can follow our next update.